Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Tracy Duran. I grew up in Aurora. I'm a Tomcat. I'm sure probably get a couple of boos for Blackhawks. Exactly. Um, I want to, when with a lot of us, we all have our history in Aurora. It's deep within us, and I know a lot of us have really great stories. A lot of times with our family stories, we have a lot of the family folklore of stories, and where you get a lot of the, where my mother's grandfather's uncle's best friend's girlfriend had served Al Capone up in the Sky Club. I had one of those. My uncle Rusty had always talked to my sister and I about how he used to serve steak to Al Capone up in the Sky Club, but was he ever there? There's no proof. But it's always fun to share those stories. And so today we're going to be talking about the early history of Leland Hotel. It's the idea of it and the first early years of it. So here we go. And my mission is, with doing this is to preserve the legacy and share the rich history of not just Leland Hotel, but of Aurora, honoring its origins and evolution. And this is in tribute to my dad. My dad was one of those where, he always had really great stories growing up in Aurora and also Montgomery. And he was always great at storytelling. And one of my favorite things that he would always tell my sister and I, when he was a young boy, he would always go out with his friends to the different islands in the river and look for arrowheads and things like that. And he also would always tell us stories about the Sky Club. And for us, it seemed like a magical place. And it just had this mystique to it. And but one of the things that he would do to us to make sure that we're kind of paying attention, whenever we would have our friends over on Saturdays, because Saturdays we always have sleepovers, and we would have when we would have Oberweis come by and deliver milk for us. And we always have, the white milk and chocolate milk. And one of our friends would ask, I'm surprised you get white milk and chocolate milk. My dad's like, well, in the back of their truck, they have a white cow and a brown cow. And that's how they would do that. So, and sometimes our friends would believe him. So that's, a lot of what I do is in honor of my dad, Jerry. So without further ado, hold on. So picture this, it's 1926 and Aurora is making headlines. The news, our city is about to build the tallest skyscraper in Illinois, outside of Chicago. The plan is for a 20-story steel frame fireproof hotel on Main Street and Island Avenue, which is now Galena Boulevard and Stobe Avenue. Led by Herbert P. Heiss and the Aurora Building Corporation, it's the largest downtown real estate project in our city's history, and construction was only starting within 30 days after this idea. And the estimated cost of the building, the numbers were jaw-dropping for the time. $1 million in building costs, $600,000 for land purchase, and $150,000 for furnishings. And it also came with a 100-year renewable lease. So in total, the amount of the estimated cost of the building was $1,750,000, which calculated for 2025 is $31,894 or $31,891,624 in 29 cents. And we now have the architects, Graven and Meiger. Now, these two fellows are the creative minds behind Leland Hotel. The architects, Graven and Meiger, they were a brand new firm in 1926, founded by Anchor Graven and Arthur Meiger. And these two weren't newcomers. They spent nearly a decade in the legendary architectural firm Rapp and Rapp, the team behind the famed Chicago Theater, and also the team that also designed the Paramount Theater. And so when Graven and Meiger struck out on their own, they carried that same theatrical elegance into their work. And the first project was the Leland Hotel. And being that they also helped out with designing the Paramount Theater, the Leland Hotel stood close in style with the paint work and the design. But there's something most people don't know. When Herbert B. Heiss first announced the project, it wasn't the Leland at all. It was going to be the Illinois Hotel. And before the Chrysler Building, before the Chrysler Building, and before the Empire State Building, we had Leland Tower was built before those two. And construction moved quickly. Excavation was underway. Steel was ordered, and in 2 weeks, concrete would be poured. Graven and Miger's design was a modern adaptation of the Italian Romanesque style, dignified, picturesque, and perfect for a landmark hotel. The lower floors would be a plain cut stone, accented with carved capitals and plaques. Above them, massive Romanesque arches would announce the lobby in dramatic style. The stone would blend seamlessly into a shaft of light golden brown brick with polychrome terracotta, adding subtle color between the windows. And under the vision of Herbert P. Heiss, this 20-story marvel began to rise at Main Street and Island Avenue in 1928. The steel contract had been awarded, excavation underway, and soon concrete and steel would climb towards the sky. Once it may not have rivaled the giants of New York, like the Empire State Building or the Chrysler Building, but it was a bold statement for Aurora, the tallest and most ambitious building in the city, a true local landmark. For Aurora, this wasn't just a hotel. It was proof that a city would dream big, build bold, and stand proudly among it would stand proudly among America's rising skylines. By the time Aurora's Grand Hotel was ready to open, the name had changed from the Illinois to something that sounded both modern and prestigious. The Leland, or it became the Leland Hotel, but why Leland? The name came from the Continental Properties, the development company behind the hotel. So the Continental Properties came in and introduced themselves to Herbert Heiss and said, "We really like your idea for this hotel. We would like to buy the idea from you and continue with the construction of it." And the name of the Leland came from this fellow, Henry M. Leland. He was no ordinary businessman. He was a machinist, inventor, and automotive pioneer. He learned precision tool making while producing rifles during the Civil War, and he invented the first mechanical barber's clippers and founded Cadillac in 1902. And he sold it to General Motors and then started the Lincoln Motor Company during World War I. And in short, Henry Leland didn't just build cars, he built icons. And what's interesting too is that he presented his ideas to Oldsmobile, but they didn't like the ideas, so he founded Cadillac instead. And also with the Leland Hotel chain, the Leland Hotel chain was a lot like the Hiltons and the Marriotts, and there were other Leland Hotel chains in Detroit, Mansfield, Ohio, Richmond, Indiana, and Richmond, Virginia, and a few other places as well. And there are still a few of the buildings that are still standing. The one in Detroit is still standing, as well. And but yeah, so it's really interesting that the Leland buildings are still around. So Leland's also fireproof. But why is the Leland considered fireproof? We actually had to go back to Chicago in the late 1800s, just after the Great Chicago Fire. New building laws say you couldn't build anything taller than 9 stories tall, unless it was fireproof, made from brick, iron, and steel. Here we have William LeBaron Jenney, and he was a very interesting fellow because he really liked the idea of building big, and but he was trying really hard to figure out a good way to get past the rules of Chicago. And William LeBaron Jenney was called the father of the skyscraper. He studied engineering in Paris with Gustave Eiffel, the fellow who was behind the Eiffel Tower. And so when Jenney designed the home insurance building in 1884, which was the first fireproof skyscraper, he used steel skeleton construction a metal frame holding the building like the Eiffel Tower structure. And what's interesting too is that as he was building the insurance building, he kept adding floors without telling the city, and he kept building up higher and higher. And the city would come by and they're like, "Oh wait, I thought you said this was going to be only 9 stories." So he's like, "Oh no, it's supposed to be 10 feet." And they'd come by again and they're like, "I thought you said it was going to be 10 feet." "Oh no, it's going to be more, or not 10 feet, 10 stories. I mean." And so he just had a way to get past the inspectors. But one funny story with how he came up with the skeleton structure. One day he came home and he was just he had basically like an engineer's writer block, and he couldn't figure out a way to do the structure. So he came home early one day, and his wife was in the parlor reading one of her books, and she had a bird cage next to her. And as she got up and she put the book on top of the bird cage and she walked towards him, well, he saw what she did and he walked right past her. So she has her arms out and she's like, "Wait, what are you doing?" and he went up to the bird cage, picked up her book and dropped it down on the bird cage again, picked it up and dropped it again. And he realized that the cage wasn't budging at all. And his wife was confused. The bird was especially confused. And this was basically his aha moment. And he realized that with the way the little cage could hold a heavy book, why can't an iron and steel cage be the framework for a whole building? So with the Leland Hotel, the architects Graven and Mager used the same steel skeleton with their construction. Each room is framed in steel, wrapped in terracotta, with brick and limestone outside. This means if a fire happens, the building won't collapse. So each room has its own framing. And in the other picture, that's the home insurance company that William LeBaron and Jenny had built. So with any fires that happen inside Leland, and this information was from Battalion Chief Jim Rhodes from the Aurora Fire Department. He explained that Leland is considered a Type 1 fire resistive, which is the highest fire protection. Water damage to lower floors is usually minimal, but sometimes water can trickle down through utility openings if they're not sealed properly. So the Leland Hotel's fireproof nature is rooted in a century-old engineering breakthrough, linking Aurora to Chicago's skyscraper history and maybe even the Eiffel Tower as well. So now we're at the 1928, the grand opening. So February 8th was when the Leland Hotel had its grand opening. And it was a big night. Maybe it was the biggest party of the year, maybe even in a decade at that time. Imagine over 200 guests gathered high above the city in the Sky Room, which at that time they called it the Sky Room. It wasn't until 1933 that they changed it to the Sky Club. And the hotel manager, W.H. Byron, was the mastermind behind the party, planning the exquisite dinner. The Sky Room was festooned with balloons and confetti and setting the scene for a celebration that was fit for royalty. This magnificent building, built with steel, brick, and stone, the foundations reaching deep into the solid rock, it gave a real feeling of security and pride. With its great steel frame, the stone facade, the Leland was built to last. Its ornamental brick and stone trimmings, rich woods, and softly glowing chandeliers made it a feast for the eyes. The Sky Room was truly a kaleidoscope of colors and the perfect setting for a celebration. The hotel's location on the river's edge offered a stunning view of the winding Fox River. The fresh, dust-free air in cool rooms meant that electric fans or refrigeration weren't really needed during the summertime. The owners had every reason to take great pride in the hotel, and elaborate provisions were made for their guests. A conscious effort was made for the hotel to be a cozy, welcoming place, and it was entirely successful. Anyone who could not find comfort there simply could not find it anywhere. And for the menu for this party, the orders started with hearts of celery, salted almonds, stuffed manzanilla olives, cream of mushroom soup, and saltines. The main courses were New England lobster thermidor, and stuffed roast jumbo squab, and accompanied by Brussels sprouts, pommes fondant, which is a fancy word for potatoes, and and, uh, and a fresh salad. And for dessert, guests enjoyed mince alongside cafe noir coffee and fine German sparkling mineral water. And as a special touch, party favors were handed out. Gentlemen received automatic pencils, and the ladies were gifted silver loose powder compacts, elegant keepsakes for the evening. So, and also to mark the occasion, two of Chicago's grand hotels, Edgewater Beach Hotel and the Palmer House, generously gave up their regular radio broadcast hours on WJJD, allowing the Leland to take center stage on their grand opening night. And truly, it was the largest party of the year and a dazzling debut for Aurora's grandest hotel. And so here we are with our grand tour. As you step inside, you're immediately greeted with the stunning marble floors that gleam underfoot. You notice the intricate wrought iron banisters lining the staircases. And above you, a unique ceiling design painted in warm panels of red, blue, and brown. Now it's all black and white, but we can use our imagination. If you walk up these 3 steps, just inside the entrance and head to the left, you'll find the elevators. But if you continue walking further back past the elevator entryway, you'll come to the barber shop, which in today's building has been converted into a laundry room. And this was the barber shop. And next we head towards the grand staircase. And there was a grand staircase in there, but the way the current building is now, that staircase was unfortunately torn out before David Caradamus took over. But back in 1928, this area was wide open and allowing guests to look up towards the second floor lobby and the mezzanine. And now we are facing the north side of the lobby. On the second floor, notice how the upholstered furniture varies in style and design, thoughtfully arranged to create a relaxed atmosphere, far from stiff or formal. And the wrought iron chandeliers cast a warm and welcoming glow. And now we turn towards the south end. And this is where you would check in. This is the check-in desk area. And the rich walnut desk stands out completely with key slots for incoming, outgoing guests, messages, and more. It's easy to imagine the hotel manager, W.H. Byron, greeting guests here, guiding them to the desk to be assisted by the friendly clerk. And now we are going to move up to the mezzanine area of the lobby. And this upper floor features inviting writing desks and cozy chairs, perfect for reading the newspaper or people watching. There's also women's lounge and a writing room on this floor, providing quiet spaces for guests to relax and unwind. And now we're to all of our favorite spot, the Sky Club, which at that time was the Sky Room. So now we're headed up to the top floor, the famous Sky Room, which was later renamed Sky Club. As you enter through the grand circular arch, the whole room takes your breath away, making it clear why this was one of Aurora's iconic gathering places. The space is truly a masterpiece of artistic decoration. The walls were painted in rich Chinese red, green, and black, creating an exotic and dramatic atmosphere. And here I have a colorized version of that photo. And so as you walk in, and also mind you, this is when the building first opened. I know later on in the years, the Sky Club did change up a little bit. But this space was truly a masterpiece of artistic decoration. When you walk in, you'll see the ceiling designed to represent the sky itself, a beautiful immersive feature that set the mood for the entire room. You also have a colorized version of that one too. Even the light fixtures followed the celestial theme, each one crafted to resemble a star or a planet, casting a soft glow that adds to the room's fantastic atmosphere. So, sorry. And we just have a couple of items that we found for the Sky Club. And I'm sure some of you might remember where they had a person walking around with a camera, and they would take pictures of everybody, and they had their keepsake photos. That's the bandstand in one of the parties that they had. Another one. And Today, though, the Sky Club area is actually turned into apartment lofts. So everything you see there is unfortunately gone. but but the spirit of everything is, you know, you can still feel it up there. There's another one with the bandstand. Some more photos. Now we come to the Gosselin era. And after Leland Hotel opened with great promise in 1928, the world quickly changed. The Wall Street crash struck and everything fell apart. The grand vision of a sister building next to the door planned for the south side of the hotel, which was never realized. So that's why there's no windows on the south side of the building. It was built to connect with the neighboring tower, but it never came to be. And unfortunately, the building faced financial struggles and went to foreclosure, not just once, but almost 14 times during its history. Then in 1936, the Leland Hotel had a rebirth, and it was the start of the classy and impressive Gosselin era. William Gosselin, born in 1872, took over ownership, bringing new life and stability to the hotel. He was born in Hudson Falls, New York, and he moved to Illinois when he was 7. Before entering the hotel business, he worked for major companies like the National Biscuit Company and Reed Murdoch and Company. On a quick note, the Reed Murdoch building, which was located in Chicago, located on 325 LaSalle Street, was constructed in 1914, and it was a warehouse, but it was also used as a makeshift hospital after the SS Eastland capsized in 1915. And the building is now listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is a designated Chicago landmark. So, but back to Mr. Gosselin. He had a solid background in hospitality, having operated several hotels, including the Jefferson Hotel in Iowa City and the Thomas in Chicago Heights. Mr. Gosselin, here are his boys, William Gosselin, Ward Gosselin, and John Gosselin. And his boys were managers, and they stayed with the Leland until the Leland was sold. And at the time of William's death in 1937, he owned 3 hotels: the Aurora Hotel and the Leland here in Aurora, and the Stonewall Jackson in Clarksburg, West Virginia. He was survived by his widow, Catherine Ward Gosselin, and 3 sons, William Ward, John Stephen, and John William Gosselin, all of whom were involved in the hotel business alongside of him. The Gosselin era marked a time of refinement and renewed prestige for the Leland, anchoring it firmly in Aurora's community during challenging times. And in 1967, the Leland Hotel was sold to the Teamsters Union and was supposed to be renovated into senior residential housing. In this slide, on the left, is the article from 1967 when the Leland Hotel was sold to the Teamsters Union. And from left to right in the photo are Ward, John, and William. And on the right photo is from New Year's Eve, and it's courtesy from the Aurora Historical Society. It's from New Year's Eve, 1959. And at the right is the Leland Hotel owner, William Ward Gosselin, and left his son, Bill, and daughter-in-law, Mickey. And now we go to the Bluebird sessions. So from 1937 to 1938, the top floor of the 20-story Leland Hotel in downtown Aurora, which was known as the Sky Club, served as an iconic recording studio for some of the most influential blues musicians in Chicago. Legendary artists as Sonny Boy Williamson, Big Joe Williams, Robert Nighthawk, Tampa Red, Bill Jazz Gillum, Harry Townsend, Washboard Sam, and all others recorded tracks for RCA Victor's Bluebird label right here at the Leland. Among the many classic songs recorded at the Leland was Sonny Boy Williams' Good Morning Little Schoolgirl, a track that continues to inspire blues harp players even today. The music created in this space became known as the Bluebird Beat, widely regarded as the precursor of urban Chicago blues. It was not unusual at the time to record blues music in hotels, especially since RCA Victor did not have its own studios in Chicago. The exact reason why RCA Victor The exact reason why RCA Victor's producer, Lester Melrose, chose the Leland remains a bit of a mystery, but they believe that it was to prevent union conflicts by recording outside the city limits, while others say the Sky Club had excellent acoustics. And a good majority, from what I've heard, it was because of the good acoustics of the Sky Club. And the makeshift recording studio consists of just a few chairs and microphones. And Henry Townsend, who recorded there, recalled in a 2000 interview that the records were cut on wax because magnetic tape and reel-to-reel machines were not yet common. Producer Lester Melrose typically brought several musicians into the studio at once, recording multiple tracks quickly. Each musician took turns as lead performer, then backed the others during their recordings. The Leland Hotel Sky Club played a vital role in shaping the sound and history of Chicago blues, having a legacy that still echoes today. Now we go to the end of an era. The next chapter in the Leland Hotel story began in October 1967 when the building was sold to the Teamsters Union. Their plan was to transform the grand old hotel into residential apartments, specifically 35 two-bedroom units renting out for $112 a month and 136 one-bedroom units for around $75 a month. I wish we still had that type of rent today. The iconic Sky Club was slated for renovation as well, intended to become a laundry and recreation area for residents. However, despite newspaper reports promising these updates, much of the planned remodeling was never fully completed, and the developers basically took the money and ran. The Sky Club in particular was left mostly untouched, aging and worn, but essentially preserved in its original state. Similarly, the hotel rooms themselves remain largely unchanged, still configured as studios or one-bedroom apartments, which like their former hotel layouts. By 1969, photographs published in the Beacon News revealed the interior of the Leland Hotel as it sat nearly abandoned, a shadow of its former grandeur, but still standing as a reminder of its storied past. So these are from the newspaper articles that I found here at the library. That was the dance floor of the Sky Club. That was where the lobby was. I do apologize for the pictures. That was the entranceway. And that was the Cozy Caves, which was also the Rathskeller, which was down in the basement area. So on a good note, we go to a leap year day hijinks. So I'm sure some of you might remember the leap year day where the gals would be in charge of the city. So you have, which at that time was a novelty, where you had a female mayor, you had a female fire chief, and a female police chief. And they would go around town and arrest the bachelors. So here you have the chef from Leland Hotel being arrested. And in the picture, you can see in the background the Block and Coal sign, which is now the Paramount Arts School, and also the Beacon News building back there. And probably further in the back was the old armory that had burnt down. And then here's the Rathskeller, another fellow. He's taking a drink before he gets arrested. And a couple, she snagged her man, and so they're getting married up in the Sky Club. And sometimes you get guys who get away, and he's on top of the roof trying to get away from the gals. We also had famous visitors to the Sky Club. We had Sally Rand, Jean Autry, Dorothy L'Amour. She was in Aurora to sell war bonds. And also Philip Wrigley, who was in charge of Wrigley Gum and also the Chicago Cubs. And history lives on with Leland. And there's so much more to the history of the Leland Hotel. We can teach the younger generations how important this building is to Aurora's history. It's not just one tall brown building that I've heard, I've heard kids in passing, oh, where's this place? Oh, it's past that big brown building. to me, it's more than just a brown building. The Leland Tower is currently owned by David Caradamus, and he also owns the Grand Building and the Mayan, which was the old Elks Lodge. So you have, oops. So that's my then photo, and a friend of mine did a drone photo recently. So, and that's my story for Leland Hotel.